Hey guys, good morning. It's Thursday, and as you know, together, or you may not know if you're new, we bake. And today is no exception. I'd like to talk about yesterday. If you caught yesterday's dinner video, we're doing a triple berry pot pie. And if you haven't checked out yesterday's dinner video, check it out. It is quite a delicious, absolutely amazing Italian sausage, green pepper, and onion uh, dish that's just out of this world. But today we're going to focus on a pie. Yeah, we haven't done a pie in a while, I don't think. At least not. Yeah, man, it's been a few minutes with the holidays and everything else going on. And this is kind of more of a springtime, summertime pie. But you can buy berries almost any time. This is a triple berry pie. Triple berries. It's blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries. You can get those all throughout the year. And in this recipe, you can use fresh, you can use frozen. Completely up to you, either way. And today I'm using fresh, and it's an easy pie, is what it comes down to. It's very few ingredients. If you're new to making pies or newer to making pies, this is a good one. I've made it before. Which I very rarely on this channel. Most things I make for the first time when we make them together. But this one I made for a customer, and they absolutely enjoyed it. And I got to taste a little bit of the filling when I was making it along the way, because I wanted to see how it, make sure it tasted okay and things were good. And it is a phenomenal pie, and I wanted to share it with you. So that being said, if you are new, I really hope you get something out of not only this video, but you check out some of my other videos and, kind of decide maybe become part of our neighborhood. Don't forget to like, dislike, doesn't matter either way. I get something out of that all the same, but I prefer you to like, subscribe, share the video if you really like the video, and help us get out into the YouTube algorithm and help us grow. But that being said, let's get down to the stovetop, because that's where we're going to start. And we've literally only got technically 7 ingredients, but basically 5 ingredients. And we'll start making our filling, because we got to make the filling, cook it, let it cool. Then after that, we'll make our pie crust, and then we'll put it all together and put it in the oven and give it a bake. So hold on for me just 1 second. Okay, we're down here to the stovetop, countertop, and we're going to start the first step. It's an easy one. Okay, so in this pot right here, I have 7 pounds of fruit. It is blackberries, blueberries, and raspberries. And it's about 2.5 cups of each. You want about 7 cups total. And the original recipe, although I don't remember offhand where I got it from, might have been all recipe, but either way, if I remember, I'll either put it down in the description, or I'll put it right here somewhere. But this was a recipe that I found that kind of, made me want to make one of these. It sounds delicious. But it's about 2.5 cups of each berry, give or take. If you like more blueberries, more blueberries, less raspberries, more blackberries, however. But I can't give you like a defined weight on it, because everything weighs differently. So in this case, we're going to have to go with cups of mixed fruit, at least best of my knowledge. But anyhow, we've got about 2.5 cups of blueberries, 2.5 cups of blackberries, 2.5 cups of raspberries in our pot. To this, I'm going to add 1 cup, 200 grams of granulated sugar, just plain old, put it in your cereal or coffee sugar. Just like such. And I've got 1 tablespoon at 18 milliliters of lemon juice. And we're going to put that in there. Okay, now we're going to turn our oven on, our stovetop on, our range on. And we're going to put it on a medium-high heat. I got mine just a hair over 4. Give this a good stir. Now, you want to kind of stir it gently, especially as this warms up. And So that way you don't smash your berries. You know, because it's okay to smash. You're going to smash some of them. You're going to lose some berries inevitably, but you want to try to keep as many berries whole as possible. And what we're going to do is, as this warms up, the juices from all the berries are going to start to come out, and the lemon juice will help draw that out. And trust me, you won't taste the lemon juice once it's cooked down. But we need to get this moving, you know, and we're gonna try to get it. We're gonna bring those juices out, bring it to a simmer, and then we can move on to the next step. And that's gonna take about 5-10 minutes to make that happen. Okay, so we are at the point where we have simmered down, and we've got some juice in there. Pull it up here so you can see it. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to push some of these berries gently to the side, especially the raspberries. I seem to struggle with raspberries falling apart on me more than anything. And we're going to get in here and we're going to grab about a half a cup of this juice. And then we're just going to put it in a container. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly a half a cup, so to speak, but you want it close to a half a cup. Because we're going to make a slurry with some cornstarch. There's that. Alright, so we got our half a cup in there. We're leaving everything else on there to simmer. Alright, we're going to take 4 tablespoons, 36 grams of cornstarch, and we're going to put it in our slurry, or put it in our juice there. Maybe if I can get it all in there. I know you can't see me doing it, but trust me, I'm putting it in there. And we're just going to take it and we're going to mix it up. Now, this egg beater, it's just a really small whisk. It's probably the most amazing thing ever. But you want to mix your cornstarch up first, you know, whether it be in water or, in this case, the juice that we're using. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with cornstarch clumps, inevitably. So once we get that mixed up, like such, right, like that, we're going to take this, and as this cooks, or as this is simmering, we're going to pour our slurry into this. Now, and you want to be careful as you stir, because right now, like I said, other than maybe the blueberries, because blueberries are tough, your berries are kind of fragile. And if you want to try to keep your berries as whole as possible, but we're going to keep this at a simmer on a medium, kind of towards the low side heat until it starts to thicken. Cornstarch is a thickening agent, so we're going to, you know, get this up to a simmer and let it, and we're going to stir it until it thickens. But like I said, you want to be gentle with it. Okay, so we've got it thickening up. All right, now you'll be able to tell, see how it's plopping and moving? That tells me that we're thickened. All right, so we don't really want to stir a whole lot more. We're going to go ahead and turn the stovetop off. And we're just going to set this aside and let it cool. All right, that's our filling is now done. But it is important you let that cool down completely. Why, you ask? Glad you asked. So the reason why we're letting that cool down completely, sorry, cut off my head, is twofold. A, that allows it time to solidify, calm down those berries. Even though they're really soft right now and just wanting to completely collapse, it allows them to firm back up a little bit. But it also allows us to get a gel going with that sauce completely and make a pie filling. If we were to try to put that in our pie crust right now, it would melt the pie crust. Your crust would just completely fall apart. So what we're going to do is we're going to let that cool. Now, our next step is to go ahead and make our pie crust. Now, I already got half of it made, but I wanted to walk you through how I make my pie crust in case you are new. One thing I did forget real quick is, let's go back down here real quick. When you take that off, 2 tablespoons, 28 grams of butter, we're going to put that in there. what that does is the butter adds a richness to it, okay, and it gives it a nice shine. It'll make it look nice and shiny, and you just want to stir that in until it melts. But while this is cooling, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to get the camera moved, and we will go ahead and start making a pie crust. And like I said, I've already got one of them made, and I waited to make the other one so we could make it together so I could show you how. You can do them both at the same time. I don't have a big enough food processor, and that's how I make mine, is through a food processor. So we'll have to, so I just waited. That way you can at least see it. And this is a recipe that you could double, easily double, probably even triple, but I don't know if I'd go any further than that. Then it just gets too hard to handle as far as the crust goes. So let me get the camera moved and get my area all straightened up, situated, and we'll make some pie crust. All right, I'll be back in just one moment. So let's go ahead and get our crust made, because this guy's sitting in the fridge for at least a half hour, 45 minutes, if not longer. All right, so I use a food processor for mine. You could just as easily do this by hand in a big bowl with a cutter or a fork. Well, a fork might be a bit of a stretch just because the butter is cold. The key to a good dough is having everything as cold as possible. So first thing, I got my food processor. Here it is, 300 grams or 2.5 cups of flour. All right, I've been doing this by grams so long I couldn't remember the cup. 2.5 cups, 300 grams of flour. To this, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons or 30 grams of granulated sugar. Throw that in there. Then we're going to add, let's get it all in there. The bowl's still slightly wet from washing it. Get that in there. And we got a 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of kosher salt. Okay, now if you don't have kosher salt, it's fine. You can use regular table salt. Now that I got those three things in there, all I'm going to do is pulse this about 5 times, get it mixed up a little bit. All right, so we got that pulsed up, and I mean, as you can see, it grew a little even. Got a little air in there, made it fluffy. So the next thing we're going to add to this is really an easy crust, is one cup, 228 grams of butter, and I got it cubed up, all right, into about 1/2 inch cubes. What I did was I cut it, took the whole stick, cut it long ways, turned it on its side, cut it long ways, and then cut it up into little cubes. And you want this as cold as possible. Mine has been in the freezer. I put it in the freezer for about 20 minutes. The colder, the better. So we're going to put that in there. All right, just like such. And what we're going to do is we're going to process this until it turns into, it'll look kind of like grain sand, you know, like a coarse grain sand, or a cornmeal, or, you know, something of that nature. I'll show you when we get done here. So we're going to get our lid back on there. We're going to put it on high and let it run for, I don't know, it will vary on your processor. I let mine run for about 20 seconds. Okay, so we got that run. And I'll show you what I was talking about here with the coarse grain. See how it kind of looks like, it no longer looks like flour. It's got some meal look to it, you know, like a cornmeal. That's what you're looking for. Now, that being said, if you have bigger chunks of butter still left in there, great. You know, that's not a bad thing. That's what gives you a buttery, flaky crust. So if you're looking for a flaky crust, just pulse this, and you'll have chunks in there. If you're doing it by hand, that's even better. So we've got that in there. Next thing we're going to need is a 1/4 cup of ice cold water. Now I've got a 1/2 cup in here with an ice cube. That way I know it's ice cold and I've got enough water. This is where the variable begins. Depending on your flour, the moisture in the air, all that stuff depends on how much water you're going to use. It may take a 1/4 cup and a teaspoon or two. It just really varies, and you'll know. I'll show you what to look for as we do this, but I always start with at least a 1/4 cup. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my processor back on and pour this in slowly. Oh, first I got to plug it back in. Okay, so we got our water in there and got it. It's not mixed completely. You'll never get it mixed completely. But once it, at least in the processor, here's what I've noticed. A lot of people don't use the processor for that stage. And I get it. But I do. It just seems to go quicker. If you don't want to use the processor for that stage, put your flour mix on the counter and make a little well, pour your water in there, and then just start mixing it together by hand. Or you put it in a bowl for that matter. But that's how I do it. So the next thing we got to do, like I said, I'm going to show you what we're going to look for here. I'm going to get you down onto the counter a little more. Right there is good. So we'll get our, we're done with the processor as far as the base goes. We're going to put this out on the counter. Make sure your counter's clean, of course. Get it all out of there. And if you're newer to food processors, be careful. These blades, incredibly sharp. We've had this processor for 4 years, and I'm here to tell you, these blades will still cut you like there's nobody's business, even after 4 years. I don't know how they sharpen them, what kind of metal they use, but Lord have mercy, they are sharp. All right. Now, next thing I'm going to do real quick, won't take 2 seconds, is go get some gloves. I have what's called hot hands, and I don't want to warm this dough up. If you feel it, it's cold, so we want to keep it that way. Okay, I'm back. Got some gloves. Those are important. Alright, so, to see if you have enough water in there, now I could have done this in the processor. I'm going to take a little bit of it, and I'm going to squeeze it. It should hold together. It should form dough. That's how you know you have enough water. Now, you see all this crumb and stuff laying around here, that's fine. Yeah, the water will work its way into that. Now, we're not going to technically knead this dough, but we're going to kind of knead it. Alright, so we got that good to go, just like such. Get all that off of the counter there. So the last thing we're going to do, we're going to set this aside for a second. Scrape that up. Get some saran wrap out, satin wrap. Or not satin wrap, but plastic wrap. And we're going to make this one giant disc. And it's going to be about, I don't know, 6-7 inches. Now, the important thing with when you form your disc is, A, you want to truly form a disc. Because whatever shape you make it now is pretty much the shape it's going to want to roll into when we roll it out. So, we're going to go ahead and get this wrapped up, just like such. Now that we have formed our disc, we'll keep forming it into a disc real quick. I'm not really satisfied with the way that is. There we go. And that way, all we have left to do now is put it in the fridge. We're going to put it in the fridge for 45 minutes-ish, maybe an hour. But the longer, the better. Yeah, if you can let it sit in there an hour, great. But we need it to relax. Flour has gluten in it. Right now we've got that gluten really excited. And what that does, if your gluten is really excited, and active and moving, it'll cause what they call snapback. Basically, you'll roll it and your dough will snap right back. So you'll roll it out, it'll go back. Roll it out, go back. It's very popular with pizza dough if you try to move it too quick. Go too quick. That can also happen if your dough sits in the fridge more than 3 days. But the dough, yeah, you can do this up to a day or two in advance. If it's going to be longer than that, stick it in the freezer. Wrap it again with a second layer. Put it in a freezer baggie. Throw it in there. It's good for at least a month. So we're going to get this in the fridge right quick. We're going to let that rest. We're going to let the filling finish cooling. And when I come back, we'll go ahead and roll out some pie crust and make pie. All right, I'll be back in 1 second. So our filling is cooled and our dough is set. It's actually been well over an hour. Had some errands to run, things like that, stuff to do. But that's okay. So the next thing we did was let me get you down here to the counter. So I skipped ahead a couple steps, I guess. And I also made some chili. It's in the crock pot. I love crock pots, man. I'm telling you. You can get it together and it cooks all day, lets you get your stuff done. You don't have to fuss with dinner when you're tired at the end of the day. All right, so as a reminder, here's the cast iron we're gonna put our pie in. Now, I have never made a pie in a cast iron before, so this will be new, even though I've made this pie before. I've never made it in a cast iron. It's a deep dish. I've only done a couple of deep dish pies, so that's gonna change some things, like it's bake time, stuff like that. And unlike a pie pan, this doesn't have a lip to put your crust ring on. So we're gonna have to wing that. I think I can do it though. All right, now, with that being said, I've got my dough sitting out here, or round is out here. I started to roll it a little bit to see where we're at with, is it done enough yet? And I wanna kind of show you something here real quick. And it's better than it was, so it's not gonna be, but I don't know if you can see it or not, but see the cracks starting to form there? That just means, and sometimes it'll happen here in the center too, that just means it's still a little cold. You know, a little colder than it wants to be. So to fix that, all you got to do really is bring it back together. And boom, you are there. Now if it happens in the center, do the same thing, you know, but let it sit. You know, just let it sit there, it's not going anywhere. And dough takes practice. Takes lots and lots of practice. But it's nothing you can't accomplish, I promise. In the meantime, while we're letting that sit for a minute, I'm going to grab what's left of, it's about a tablespoon of butter here. Tablespoon of butter. And we're going to go ahead and get this on the pan. Even though it's cast iron and it's, you know, has non-stick properties, so to speak, but almost everything has non-stick properties. Glass has non-stick properties, you know, if you're using a glass pie pan. You know, even your non-stick pans, you still, you know, when you're making cakes, things like that, you still butter them down. And this would be no different. It's just it's an insurance. The first thing I ever baked in this pan was cornbread, which is what I primarily use it for. Occasionally I'll cook other little things in it just to keep it in circulation. But even then, I butter it down just to give it that extra little bit of, okay, we're in good shape. So we got that buttered like that, and I need a paper towel so I can wipe my hands off. Now we haven't preheated our oven yet, and we're not going to. Not quite yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll this dough out, get that, because this will be our bottom, get that in there. I'll bring out the other round. We'll get it rolled out. We'll cut out our strips for our lattice. And then once we got the pie built, we'll turn the oven on then. We can just keep the pie in the fridge to keep everything cold and good until it preheats. So let's go ahead and get this rolled out. Okay, so we got our bottom round rolled out. Looking good. I mean, you can see I still got some little cracks here along the edges, and you know what? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Mostly because chances are we're either going to trim it off or fold it over. But what I do want to look for is I want to be able to take my pan and make sure I got a good couple inches around if I have this in the center. That way I ensure I have enough to go up the sides, right? So there's a couple things we can do. Once you get practicing with your dough, I mean, I can literally just pick my dough up. It's still thick. I've got it between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch thick. 1/8 of an inch is about as thin as you want to go with a pie crust. And 1/4 inch is about as thick as you want to go. I mean, you can go thicker, but your pie crust is going to get weird. Or you can just grab it like that, pick it up, put it in, or you can fold it completely over. You know, there's so many different ways to do things when it comes to pies and pie crusts. Yeah, I mean, there's just like anything else. It's like when we can and things like that. I mean, there's rules you have to follow. We're going to go ahead and get this pressed down in here and see where we're at crust-wise. And with the height that's, you know, going to be a little foldy. I mean, I don't know if you can see that right there, but see how it's got that little crease in it? It's okay. Just press it down. Bam. Done. Nobody knows. So the next thing we want to do, because we're just going to do a old school crimp job on this crust. We're not doing because we're not doing a solid top. We don't have to worry about making it fancy. We're going to do a lattice. So let me grab my scissors out of here. We do want to make this even though, so that way we're not, thick in the crust in some spots, thin in the others. And we'll just go ahead and get this trimmed up. So we're about, because this doesn't have a lip on it, we don't have to go out too far off of it, but we want to give it some, maybe a quarter to a half inch of space off of the edge of the pan. Because we want enough to be able to fold it under some. All right, we got our crust cut down, looking good. So now I'm just going to take it, I don't know if you can see that or not, and I'm just going to tuck it under, right? We're going to tuck it under and let it rest on that little edge we got. That's the most we got going on right there. Okay, so we got our crust in there, right? I've got a little bit of scrap left. What am I going to do with that? Well, I mean, if you bake pies often enough, wrap this up in saran wrap, put it in the freezer. And you can just keep adding to it. Remember, it's good for a month or so in the freezer, so there's no sense in getting rid of it. And eventually, because I'll save it up, and then I'll make a bunch of little pies, like for breakfast pies with sausage and eggs or bacon and whatever in it. And it always tastes really good. So anyhow, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna put it in the fridge, so that way it gets, it stays cold. And if you're not gonna put it in the oven right away, you want to put it in the fridge. If you're gonna put it in the fridge and it's gonna be in there longer than say 10-15 minutes, cover it with a plastic wrap. That way it stays fresh. All right, well, let me get that other disc rolled out, and we'll talk about lattice next. All right, hold on for me 1 second. Okay, guys, got the second round rolled out. No different than the first one. Just roll, turn, to get an almost perfect circle. Actually, it's nowhere near perfect, and I'll never have a perfect circle. All right, so to make my lattice, and everybody does a little different, but I have a measuring tape, a ruler that I use just in the kitchen. We don't do nothing else with it. I lay it down, and then I got a bench scraper, and I go through about 3/4 inch, and I make a notch. And that way I can, I know where my strips are, and I need at least 11 strips. Now I do mine 3/4 inch. You do yours however thick or thin you want them. In my mind, 3/4 inch seems to be the right size for what I like, and it seems to work out well for me. Okay, so I got those done, and then I just take my my bench scraper here, and I just go across it as close as possible. Like that one there I probably won't use, but I try to take the ones I know are going to go all the way across that 9-inch pie pan, and those are the. Okay, so we got our lattice strips cut, and we actually got 15 of them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this entire sheet, right, and I'm just going to put it up here on this pan. And then if I had the room in my fridge, it would go into my fridge, but I don't have the room in my fridge, and it's just cool enough outside that it's like a fridge. It's not freezing cold out, it's not hot, so I'm going to stick this out on the deck real quick, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, got those outside chilling on the porch. Now I got my pie pan back out, or my bottom crust back out. We got our filling has cooled. Look how nice and thick that is. And I'm here to tell you, even though it's thick like it come out of a can, it is 10 times better than any of that pie filling you buy from the grocery store in a can. You get that stuff, it not only does it taste weird, but you get like no fruit in it. So now what we gotta do is put our fruit in here. We'll give it a nice go around, make sure we're even at any rate. Yep, I think this, if using a deep dish pan, even though according to the original recipe, which the only thing I varied on it was I actually put more fruit in it than I think it normally called for, knowing that this was a deeper pan. Next time I'm going to go 1.5. So instead of 7 cups, we'll go 11. 7.5, we'll go 11 of fruit, extra thing of cornstarch, another half a tablespoon of lemon juice. All right, let me go get the lattice strips off the porch, and we'll put the lattice on. Hold on for me 1 second. Okay, got the lattice strips in. Now lattice is fairly easy. The trick to it is you got to make sure everything's cooled down in here, and you want to make sure these are fairly firm and chilled, right? And you just want to lay them out. Like I said, I'm going to try to go 6 across. It may even end up being 7. We got 15 of them, so that'd be 7 each direction. And we're going to lay them as evenly as we can across in 6. Okay, so we got our 6 on there. Now, let's say you're not comfortable with lifting those, or they're warm, and anytime your dough gets warm, just stick it in the fridge, and it'll be just fine. But you can just as easily lay these across here like that and be done with it. I used to do that, I won't lie. But now I can just, because these are still slightly chilled, I can just take them and put them one under, then the next one's over, then under, then over. Then we'll take this one under and over. And then we'll do our next one. Now the next one, because we went under on that one, we're going to go over. Then we'll take this one under, over, maybe under, yep, under, over, and then under. Then I'll put one more here on the edge, and then I'll do this side, and then we'll do the next step. Okay, so we got our lattice on there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a knife, and I'm going to trim this. And you know what we forgot to do? Even though I think I mentioned it, is turn our oven on. If you haven't started yet, bake 400 degrees. Get that going. It's going to take a minute. That's all right. We got a couple seconds before we got anything to do. But I'm going to take my knife, and I'm going to cut off these excess pieces. Yeah, the strips hanging over. All right, so we got her all nice and neat. And look, so the leftovers dough that we had right there, that's what we had left over. So I'm going to take it and just put it in the plastic wrap that was. And for right now, I'm just going to stick it in the fridge. But when I get a spare second here sometime today, I'll go ahead and give this a second wrap over it. Put it in a freezer bag. And now that I have a vacuum seal machine, I may even vacuum seal that, and I'll put it in the freezer. It'll be good for a month or so. That is a couple of small breakfast pies one morning for breakfast with some eggs, sausage, salsa, and Bertel in it, and you know, just a whole feast of goodness. But all right, so a couple things left to do here, and we'll be ready to go in the oven. You know, like I said, I mean, we're still heating up, so we're in good shape. So I've got an egg wash, and my egg wash is simply one egg that I beat up, and I've got 2 tablespoons of water in there. You could put heavy cream in there or milk in there. I prefer just water, and the reason why I want to water it down is so it spreads easier. And I was going to go ahead and get this on and put it over top of my crust, you know, my lattice and along the edge. And this does 2 things. It'll give it a nice color, but it helps it not to burn. If you wash your pie tops, your pie crust, whether it's just with cream, milk, regular whole egg, egg and water, egg and milk, I mean, whatever your preference is, it helps it to not burn. We got that egg wash on there. Now, we can just let it be like it is and move on, but I am going to take my fork that I used to beat up that egg with, and I'm just going to run around the edges. I'm sure that this will not stay. I have yet to have this particular type of press. Yeah, how you can do it like with your knuckles or whatever and make it fancy. I have actually yet to have this particular way stay for me, but I keep trying anyhow. It usually just comes out poofy and looking like I didn't do anything, but we're going to try it again anyway. So, lettuce is washed, crimped, oven's going off. Couldn't have timed that a whole lot better. So we'll go ahead and get this in the oven right quick. Whoa. Now you notice I got this thing on a sheet pan. There's a reason for that. Although it may not matter with this particular pie because it sits, the filling sits low enough it may not bubble over. But we don't want it to bubble over. Now we're going to bake this for about 40 to 45 minutes. I'm going to put it at 40 minutes. And we're going to hit start. So, I gotta turn my light on. I don't know about you guys, but I've got like a couple routines that I do no matter what when it comes to baking. I'm always watching a sci-fi or horror movie. Always. I am a creature of habit and routine, and these two I think are very important. And anytime I bake anything in the oven, I turn the oven light on. That way I can always see it. And very rarely do I leave the kitchen while it's baking. Now I can. Obviously, it's not going to change anything, but with this one, I put it in there for 45 minutes. Now, I've never done one in cast iron before, so I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but I do know what to look for. First thing I'm going to look for, I'm going to keep an eye on that crust. If it starts to get too dark or starts to get too brown, or out of control, I can do one of two things. I can either put a piece of foil over the top of it and tent it, because you don't want to lay the foil flat on the pie. You want to pinch the center so that way it stays off the center of the pie. Or I can put a pie ring on it so that way, because most of the time it's the crust ring that really takes a majority of the beating on it. It's the one thing that's getting it from all sides as far as the pie pan goes. So I'll look for those two things. I'll know when it's done though when I look in that oven and I see the filling is starting to bubble. When it's basically boiling, just like it was when it was on the stove top, I know we have hit peak temperature. You can also take its temperature. It'd be right around 190 degrees is what you're looking for. At 190 degrees, that's when the cornstarch is at its peak for solidifying, but I could tell by when I poured it in there, it's a good filling. It wasn't runny at all. So we should be in good shape. Now we're just baking the crust and molding it all together to make one pie and to be tasty. So I'll check it here in 15-minute intervals, make sure our crust isn't burning, and I'll either put a crust ring on it or pie ring on it or a tent, or I may do nothing, depending. At 40 minutes, I'll look to see if it's bubbling. 45 minutes, I'll just keep checking until I see it's bubbling and I know it's done. So when I come back, we'll pull it out of the oven and take a look at it. All right, see you here in just a second. Okay, our timer's going off. Turn the oven off because I know it's pretty well done. It did take 55 minutes for this pie to go through with the cast iron. And although the instructions are for a normal pie pan, but when I temped it, because it wasn't bubbling, at 40 minutes, it was only reading 146. And then when I temped it again at 45, it was only reading 150, 154. So we put her in for 55 minutes, and we are starting to show signs of bubbling. But I'm here to tell you what, this pie looks absolutely amazing. Let me bring you in for a little, closer shot there. But there, friends, is our fruit of our labor. And I think that just looks incredible. So what do we do with it now? As always, we now have to practice patience. So, although it's not cheesecake patience where we have to wait till the next day or, much later, or at least hours, we have to let this cool. We have to let it cool down to room temperature. Even if we were able to take a bite of it right now, we definitely would scald ourselves to death, and the filling would run. I mean, it's piping hot. It's like lava. Um, it's got to be pushing 200 degrees. So that being said, I'm going to let it sit here on the counter and let it cool while the chili finishes cooking for dinner. And we'll probably have this for dessert, after dinner, and me and you will get to try the first slice. So when I come back, we'll cut into it and see how we turned out. All right, I'll see you here in a second. Okay, so our pie is cool, and it's been cooling for a while. And but I'm here to tell you, it still looks just, look at that. Wow. You can't beat the way it looks. So, but, of course, that means nothing. Yeah. How does it taste? How did it hold up? Those are the things we're looking for. Let's go ahead. Get our knife in there. Start getting piece cut. It's the first time I've ever baked a pie in cast iron, so this will be quite the look. I think it turned out okay, though. That first piece is always the biggest pain in the butt on anything we make. Yep. I say we stuck to the bottom a little bit. That's all right. I'll take it. All right. Yeah, we did stick to the bottom a little bit. That's all right. Yeah. And it collapsed on us. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because it was the first piece. And I'll tell you why I'm okay with the fact that it was the first piece. Because if you look in there, it's not running. It didn't collapse. So I know it was literally just because it was the first piece. And I'm down with that. You know what? Even if it wasn't the first piece, I'm still down with that. We, by no means, are professionals or experts. Right? We're just people who like to bake. But let's give it a try. I know just that little bit I got on my fingers was quite good. Oh, yeah. Oh. It tastes quite delightful. Hmm. That is a spot-on 3-berry pie. Hands down. That's got a good flavor all the way around. You can taste all 3 berries, which is kind of cool. You can taste the raspberries, the blackberries, and the blueberries. That crust is perfect. And I think, even though I've never cooked in a cast iron pan before, it gave the bottom of the crust a really nice crispness. That being said, try this recipe. Hands down, it's well worth the try in a regular pie pan. And like I said, this is for a deep pie crust, or a deeper pan. So just remember, if all you have is a shallower pan, you can still use this recipe, but it's going to be mounded a little bit. So it'll be extra poofy. That's good. I'll give this a try. Let me know if you do. Let me know if you like the recipe. Let me know if you don't. You can either leave me a comment down below or check us out on Facebook. Leave us a comment there. Let us know what you thought of it there at Mr. Smith's Kitchen. Next week, I have no idea what we're going to cook. I have an idea of what we're going to bake. Although at the moment, it escapes me what the pie is called, but it's a pie that I was asked about, a couple, 2, 3 weeks ago. It's a Texas something or another pie. But it looks delicious, and it looks like it's got everything but the kitchen sink in it. That's up there for I could possibly do next week. But who knows? Who knows what next week's going to bring? So until then, I love you. I love you very much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else you love them and you love them very much. It's going to make them feel good. It's going to make you feel good telling them. Make them one of these pies. Be great for conversation, especially some ice cream. Warmed up, just a hair above room temperature. You can't win. That's asking for an evening of conversation. So, till next week, I love you. See you then. All right, talk to you later. Bye.